Hey nerds. So, talking about my favorite pseudo-intellectual crackpot to criticize, Jordan Peterson, former clinical psychologist and infamous pseudo-intellectual crackpot, as I often say. He's talking to billionaire, MAGA, and Jordan Peterson sycophant, who's recently been going on the Rogan and his buddies podcast circuit to to basically gargle Trump's nuts and all that shit. So they're panicking about woke AI because OpenAI, when some people have done tentative, like brief, not very scientific experiments, have done like asked it questions and then come back with answers that are supposedly woke because they use keywords like equality or some shit like that. And yeah, maybe there's something to it, maybe there isn't. Let's get into it.
If the large language model's value is in their wisdom, and that wisdom is derived from their understanding of the deep pattern of correlations between...
Can AIs really achieve wisdom? Can they understand wisdom from language models? I mean, what even is wisdom? Can humans understand wisdom well enough to program that idea into AI, learning wisdom from languages? I mean, I'm not a fucking expert, but I kind of highly doubt that AI can learn wisdom from large language models. So I think he's, being all like drunk on symbols as he usually is.
Between ideas, which is like a major source of wisdom, genuinely speaking. Why pervert that with an overlay of shallow ideology? And why is the ideology...
Well, of course, he's assuming without actually knowing the minds of the people who programmed OpenAI that they attach this woke ideology to the large language models. I'm pretty sure that's fucking bullshit. I mean, like, maybe the people who program them, every human has biases. Maybe they tend to be more lefty, but how the fuck would you even know? You don't know that lefties put their lefty ideology into the AIs. You just don't like some of the answers because they sound woke. It's not like he's saying this shit as if it's objectively true, but it's all just his assumptions and speculation, and that's what he does all the time. I speak with such confidence that I can say complete bullshit and sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Ideology in the direction that it is, and then how is that gerrymandering conducted?
Yes, let me start with the how. So the how is a technique. There's an acronym for it. It's called reinforcement learning by human feedback. And so in the field, it's called RLHF. And RLHF is basically a key step for making an AI that works and interacts with humans, which is you take a raw model, which is sort of feral and doesn't quite know how to orient to people. And then you put it in a training loop with some set of human beings who effectively socialize it. And so, right, reinforcement learning for the human feedback. The key there is
that's interesting.
Human feedback, right? You put it in dialogue with human beings, and you have the human beings do something very analogous to teaching a child, right? Here's how you respond. Here's how you're polite. Here's the things you can and can't say. Here's how to word things. Here's how to be, curious, all the behaviors that you presumably want to see from something you're interacting with that is sort of human, sort of a human proxy kind of form of behavior. That is 100% human enterprise. You have to decide what the rules are for the people who are going to be doing that work. They're all people. And then you have to hire into those jobs. The people going into those jobs are in many cases the same people. This will horrify you. They're the same people who were in the trust and safety groups at the social media companies 5 years ago.
Does he have evidence for that? I don't know that he actually does, because I know that on podcasts before he's said shit without actually knowing it. And, some of these designers of the AI, some of them are probably woke, but I highly doubt that all of them are, especially since people like him are apparently directly or indirectly involved in more or multiple ways, and he sure is not fucking woke. So is he not doing his job and influencing them to not hire people who he would see as woke?
Oh, good. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Right.
And do you see Jordan Peterson just takes his word for granted?
You're a fellow anti-woke crusader, so anything you say is true.
Couldn't imagine a worse outcome than that.
Because all the people that Elon cut out of the trust and safety group at Twitter when he bought it, many of them have migrated into these trust and safety groups, at these AI companies, and they're now setting these policies and doing.
Wonder how many is many. Many may mean like two. Who knows?
Doing this training.
So the terrifying, well, the terrifying thing here is that we're going to produce hyper powerful avatars of our own flaws, right? And so if you're training one of these systems,
hyper powerful avatars of our own flaws, even like my conservative flaws and your MAGA sycophant flaws,
and you have a variety of domains of personal pathology, you're going to amplify that substantively. You're going to make these giants, like I joke with my friend Jonathan Pajot, who's very reliable source in such matters, that we're going to see giants walk the earth again.
He's very reliable in matters of giants. I really admire Jonathan Pajot because he's an expert on giants, and I think that the giants from the Bible will walk earth.
I know Jordan Peterson doesn't mean it literally, but the way he said that just sets it up so perfectly.
I mean, that's already happening, and that's what these AI systems are. And if they're trained by people who, well, let's say, are full of unexamined biases and prejudices and deep resentments, which is
like all humans, like Jordan Peterson and Marc Andreesen too.
Something that you
and Trump, don't forget him. Yeah, he's not actually a god.
Talk about in your manifesto, resentment and arrogance being like key sins, so to speak. We're going to produce.
He has a manifesto? Why does he need a manifesto?
Produce monstrous machines that have exactly those characteristics, and that is not going to be good. And that's you're absolutely right to point to this, as you know, to point to this as perhaps the serious problem of our times. If we're going to generate augmented intelligence, we better not generate augmented pathological intelligence.
It seems to be the argument so far.
Wokeness bad.
There you go.
Some of these machines might be woke. Wokeness bad.
And if we're not very careful, we are certainly going to do that, not least because there's way more ways that a system can go wrong than there are ways that it can, aim upward in a unerring direction.
Is that true? I don't know. I mean, to me, it kind of seems like it depends on the system, and he's kind of assuming that about this system. I don't think that's necessarily true about this system. Also, wouldn't there be multiple systems, as he calls it, if there are going to be, because there's going to be more than one different type of AI, because there's more than just open AI, right? There are a whole hell of a lot of competitors, so it's not just going to be one. He's just doing this rhetorical hyperbolic thing that he always does, and he's making it as pedantic and verbose as possible, so it sounds like he's saying something, but he's really just saying,
wokeness bad because people are flawed and have biases.
And so, so why is it these people who were, this is so awful, I didn't know that were, say, part of the safety and trust issue at Twitter, who are now training the bloody AIs? How did that horrible situation come to be?
It's the same dynamic. It's the big AI companies have the exact same dynamic as the big social media companies, which have the exact same dynamic as the big universities, which have the exact same dynamic as the big media companies, which is
everything is woke. They all have the same dynamic. The AI companies, the woke universities, the government, the social media companies, they're all in lockstep. Even though Twitter is now owned by Elon Musk, who's the biggest Trump sycophant in the world and the richest man in the world, and Mark Zuckerberg is now on Facebook is now Trump sycophant too, and perhaps that will also become the case for Instagram soon, and maybe TikTok, who knows? So all the social media is controlled by lefties, except for Twitter and Facebook, which are the two most major ones, other than two of the most major ones. Anyway, yeah, everything's woke.
You have these either formal or de facto cartels. You have a small handful of companies at the commanding heights of society that hire all the smart graduates. As I say, take a step back. You don't see ideological competition between Harvard and Yale, right? Like, you would think that you should, because
even if you believe this shit, like, didn't Trump supposedly defeat wokeness, and he has this fucking $500 billion project supposedly to develop AI in America? I don't think wokeness is going to be a fucking problem for AI, at least in America anymore. It'll be fucking Trump AI, which will be so much fucking worse.
They should compete in the marketplace of ideas. And of course, in practice, you don't see that at all. You see no ideological, competition between the New York Times and the Washington Post. You see no ideological competition.
Wait, whoa. No ideological competition. What about the like? Wait, did he say
Between the Ford Foundation and marketplace of ideas? And of course, in practice, you don't see that at all. You see no ideological, competition between the New York Times and the Washington Post.
Oh yeah, I did hear that correctly. New York Times and Washington Post. Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, who has become a Trump sycophant, because there was all of that massive scandal with the Washington Post when Trump was about to get elected, right? So obviously the Washington Post is not in step with the New York Times, because the New York Times is more closer to MAGA, the Washington Post is more closer to MAGA, and the New York Times are way more lefty in comparison to Washington Post, although maybe they have some similarities, but it's obviously not the case that they're fucking in ideological lockstep, and neither are the social media companies. So the print media and social media companies are not in ideological lockstep at all so far, even though he says that they are. So 0 out of 3 so far. 0 out of 2.
No ideological competition between the Ford Foundation and any of the other major foundations. They all have the exact same politics. You see no prior to Elon.
What about like the Heritage Foundation, that well-known right-wing think tank who has influence on like a ton of different right-wing podcasters? What about that whole Tenet Media scandal with Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and a whole bunch of other people of their ilk? Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, there's so many right-wing foundations.
On buying Twitter, you saw no ideological competition between the different social media companies, right?
You're not mentioning that Musk owns Twitter. This is past history, man.
Today, you see no ideological competition among the big AI labs. Elon is the spoiler, right? He is coming in to do he's going to try.
Oh, so you're saying that there is no competition, except Elon Musk Grok is directly in competition, as you yourself are saying. Maybe he's saying there are no major competitors, but it's obviously not the case that all of the AIs are woke. As I just explained, he's wrong about the social media companies and other media companies and universities and everyone else being in ideological lockstep. So even if their fears have more validity to them, or even a lot more validity to them than I think they are, like Trump and his magic anti-woke shit obviously clearly put a stop to all of this with their $500 billion AI project, which apparently they don't have the funding for, according to Elon Musk. But it's going to be a fucking AI project, and who knows what's going to happen, because it's a fucking Trump plan. But the point remains that it's not like, it's sure as fuck not the case that all AI is like woke and going to take over
try to do an AI
wrong button, take over the world with wokeness.
What he did in social media, which is create the non-woke one. But without Elon,
non-woke,
you weren't seeing that at all. And so you have this consistent dynamic across these sectors of what appears to be a free market economy, where you end up with these cartels, where they sort of self-reinforce.
Oh, you mean like the Twitter cartel that Elon Musk owns? The richest man in the world owns one of the most popular social media companies in the world that is just endlessly like retweeting Nazi shit and horrible racist shit and just every fucking MAGA thing you could possibly imagine. The worst versions of MAGA too, not even the more mild versions of it.
Person self-police, and then they're policed by the government. And anyway, so I want to describe the general phenomenon, because that's what
policed by the government, now controlled by Trump, dude.
What's happening here. It's the same thing that happened with the social media companies, and then this gets into policy it's in a very serious policy issues on the government side.
Except Trump is already instituting a hell of fucking anti-woke policies.
Which is the government going to grant these AI companies basically protected status as some form of monopoly or cartel in return for these?
Like Trump is going to do that for his Trump AI
companies signing up for the political control that their masters in government want, or in the alternative,
Trump will have political control over AI.
Is there actually going to be an open AI universe, a true open AI, like truly open, where you're going to have a multiplicity of AIs that are actually in full
No,
competition.
because it'll be woke AI versus Trump AI and dumb cartels like you were talking about.
Right, competing, and then you'll have some that are woke, and you'll have some that are non-woke, and you'll have some trained on new material and some trained on old material, and so forth and so on, and then people can freely pick. And the thing that we're pushing for is that latter outcome. We very specifically want government to not protect these companies, to not put them behind a regulatory
Except I bet you want that to be done with Trump's AI.
wall, to not be able to control them in the way that the social media companies got controlled before Elon. We actually want like full competition. And if you want your woke AI, you can have it, but there are many other choices.
Well, can you imagine developing a super intelligence that's shielded from evolutionary pressure? Like, that is absolutely
What? Artificial intelligences don't evolve, or at least don't have the capability yet. Why, like, how could you even design an AI to respond to evolutionary pressures if it's not capable of evolving? Maybe that's a simple question, but he's not to like that's not a thing that he's talking about. Why would AIs respond to evolutionary pressures? Maybe I'm just showing my ignorance in terms of the way AIs are designed, but that doesn't make any sense.
insane. That's absolutely insane.
How would you design what AIs to respond to evolutionary pressures? It's insane to not do that. Then why are you doing it? Maybe if he's right, then maybe AIs should not have been developed this far anyway. And there's some merit to that argument if you think that AI is going to like destroy the world. But who fucking knows what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, we know that the only way that a complex system can regulate itself across time is through something like evolutionary competition. That's it. That's the mechanism. And
something like, okay, I can grant that.
So if you decide that this AI is correct by fiat, and then you shield it from any possibility of market
The exact same shit that they're doing with Trump and his anti-woke AI.
feedback or environmental feedback, well, that is literally the definition of how to make something insane.
Yep. So they're clearly at very least exaggerating about open AI or woke AI. Maybe there will be somewhat woke AI, but and maybe this is my bias, but if there's like fucking Trump AI, I think that's going to be way fucking worse, especially since he's already started the process of destroying America and destroying America's relationship with other countries. But anyway, maybe there will be like ideological anti-woke versus woke AI. That doesn't sound like it's gonna be fucking good for the world. But the point is that they're probably fucking panicking needlessly, and at least in this stage of reality, there's no fucking danger from woke AI until all of AIs get more developed, in my opinion. So, as usual, they're just being whiny conservative snowflakes.